Bob Costas here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Bob?
Hey, Rich. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. So what did you think about Madden's use of his bullpen last night?
It's so hard to criticize Joe Madden about anything. You look at the success he had with a previously cellar-dwelling team in Tampa. You look at what he's done in Chicago, not just the right strategic moves, but the atmosphere around the ball club. Very difficult to criticize him. But I was scratching my head over this. You know, if you don't want the game to get away from you, and in a far-fetched scenario, you're up 7-2 and a couple of base hits, and someone hits one out, and all of a sudden it's a close game, and you want to get out of that situation and have him throw a few pitches, okay. But I don't understand why Strope or Rondon or somebody else isn't just throwing in the top of the ninth. Then when Rizzo hits the home run, then Strope comes out and pitches the entire ninth inning. You're up 9-2 at that point. They were up 7-0. They were up 7-2. They're up 9-2 when the Indians come up for their last licks. At that point, I know that he really doesn't trust Rondon and Strope as the season has moved along. But at that point, I would have tried to spare Chapman the additional pitches and figure that almost anybody's going to get you through with a 7-run lead.
Bob Costas joining me here. And all right, let's try and put this in perspective, because the last time the Indians were in a Game 7, you know, they went against a newbie franchise, right? Florida Marlins couldn't have been more in diapers. Now they're going against a team that has more lengthy trials and tribulations than they do. It's really unbelievable, Bob.
Yeah, I did that game in 1997,
right.
That Game 7 in Florida. And I said at one point during that seventh game, there are people in Cleveland who have been waiting for this for nearly half a century. And there are people in South Florida who've been waiting for this since Thursday.
It's
And that may have ticked off some Marlins fans.
It's true, though.
And nothing against Jim Leland, because that was the crowning achievement of a great baseball career for him. He had so many other near misses, first with the Pirates and later with the Tigers. So happy for him. And that Game 7 was an epic game, and it went 11 innings, and it had all kinds of strategy. But the contrast could not have been greater. The games in Cleveland, unlike the way they've lucked out with the weather last night and apparently again tonight, the games in Cleveland, it's snowing. Temperatures in the 30s. Wind chill was 15 for one of the games. And all the games in Miami are temperatures in the 80s. And you've got a team that was, 5 years old and had been a wild card team. And the other team that is an ancient franchise and had been a truly terrific team through the mid-90s and had made a number of playoff runs and had been to the World Series twice in 3 years. The contrast could not have been greater. Now, against any other team but the Cubs, Cleveland would be the nation's sentimental favorite. But whatever long-standing travail Cleveland fans have, well, it's outdone by the century-long suffering of Cub fans. So I guess the Cubs are, to the nation, by and large, the Cubs are the bigger story.
Yeah, and it's because, again, you forget, the Indians have been waiting 68 years. And so it's truly remarkable, this matchup tonight. I'm with Bob Costas here on the Rich Eisen Show. So win or lose, baseball is clearly the winner here in this whole situation. Do you, because we're, as you know, we all are focusing on ratings involving with the NFL. Do you think that this is a potential turning point for Major League Baseball to become the national pastime again, Bob?
I think it'll take more than this for them to overtake football. Football may be coming back a little bit for a number of complex reasons, but this is a perfect storm also for baseball. I'm happy to see it happen, but it's a perfect storm with the Cubs. The story's been building all season long, and so it has an aspect to it that other World Series might not. And, of course, you get to a seventh game, and now you have a seventh game on a Wednesday night, sports-wise, against only early-season NBA and NHL games. I would think this would get the highest rating in just about 20 years, probably the highest World Series rating or rating for any baseball game since that Game 7 between Cleveland and Florida in 1997. And when you think about it, that also shows you how the landscape has changed. Again, with all due respect to that Cleveland team, which was a powerhouse in the 90s, and to Jim Leland's Marlins team, that didn't have the kind of historical resonance that Cleveland against Chicago has now, and yet the landscape has changed to the point where if tonight's Game 7, and I think it will, is in the vicinity of the rating of that Game 7 19 years ago, people will be doing handstands about it or backflips or something.
Yes.
Some sort of gymnastics.
Bob Costas joining me here. Well, an Ozzie Smith flip. Let's just use
there you
that.
go. There you go.
So how do you see this playing out? How do you see it playing out tonight, Bob?
Well, the Cubs have the greater depth of starting pitching, and that could help them in this game because they have arrested Lester and arrested Lackey to use out of the bullpen. You have to wonder about how many pitches Chapman has left in his arm. Joe Madden says, strong young man. Chapman says, I'll be fine. I can go as long as they need me to go. If that's true, then they're set up. But so, too, is Cleveland because although Kluber's only on 3 days rest yet again, they just need 4 or 5 strong innings out of him. They haven't used Andrew Miller or Cody Allen, for that matter, in several days. So they're both perfectly rested. So, if this thing goes 15, 16 innings, I think both teams are in decent shape. And the ratings will be through the roof. People will stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning if it goes 15, 16 innings in a Game 7.
It's so exciting. I mean, your colleague and then, as of tomorrow night for sure, my colleague Chris Collinsworth tweeted out, because I know you're not terribly attuned to Twitter, Bob.
No, not at all.
But he's tweeting out like he hasn't felt this way about baseball in a long time, is what he said. I'm hearing that from a lot of people that, as I said at the top of the show, there was a Game 7 just a couple of years ago with one of the more incredible pitching performances you will ever see in such a game with Madison Bumgarner. But even that was just viewed as a quaint sporting event in a way, obviously outside of San Francisco and in Kansas City. This is a different story. This is huge.
Well, Game 7 in 2011, the Cardinals and the Rangers, after the Cardinals won a nearly unbelievable Game 6, down to their last strike a couple of times, coming back in the 9th and the 10th, and then winning it on the David Freese homer at home, I think in the 11th inning, and then the Cardinals go on to win Game 7. That one had a tremendous feeling about it, but somehow this is the one that's really captured everybody. And when people talk about, I've had some Cleveland fans say to me, why are the Cubs the bigger story? I think there's 3 obvious reasons. One is just 68 years is a long time, but 108 is a lot longer. And Cleveland was not touted from the beginning of the year. The Cubs have been a building story all year long. Made it to the playoffs, to the LCS last year, won 103. Here they come, here they come. Not just a sentimental favorite, but the best team in baseball on paper, most people thought, entering the postseason. And then there's this, which is easily overlooked, the venue. It's not the Indians' fault, but they're not playing in Municipal Stadium. And with all due respect, Municipal Stadium never had the mystique that some of the old ballparks did. But when the Red Sox finally won after 86 years, they were playing in Fenway Park. They won it in St. Louis, but they were playing in Fenway Park. So all the memories, all the ghosts were right there in that venue. And all the memories and all the ghosts are at Wrigley Field. So they've got the venue going for them as well. Those are the 3 factors that make the Cubs an even richer story than the Indians outside Ohio. But if Cleveland wins this thing, what they've done shouldn't be undersold, and what it means emotionally to their fans shouldn't be undersold, and to the city, which went without, I'm sure you've talked about this, without a title of any kind in any major sport since 1964, and now between the Cavs and the Indians, they could double down in the space of just a few months.
It's unbelievable. It's so exciting. It really is. So the poll question we have today is simple. Who do you think's winning tonight? Who do you think is winning tonight, Bob?
It doesn't do me any good to go on the record.
But this is sports talk radio, Bob. You got to have a take.
Rich, you'll testify to this. I hope you will,
yes.
if I ever need a character witness. I'm a nice enough guy,
yes,
and yet occasionally I express an opinion, and the world goes nuts.
Yes, they do.
There's no upside here.
But this is sports talk radio, Bob. There's no gray area. There's, you got to have a take.
Yeah, but
a hot take. It's got to be a hot take, Bob.
When I hang up,
yes.
I'm going to go about my day. And you're going to still be doing sports talk radio. So I think this is more your problem than mine.
It's your problem, not a my problem. Is that what
exactly.
you just
Although
did?
I sympathize, I'll help you out in any way I can.
Well, then that means I'll need a hug from you when I see you tomorrow in Raymond James Stadium, Bob. I look forward to teaming up with you and the rest of the NBC crew.
Well, we'll be aboard the pirate ship.
We will be. Be careful. Now, Mariucci jumps every time they fire off those cannons because sometimes you're not expecting it.
Yeah.
So just don't be around Steve. Just as a heads up, if you're around Mooch, he gets a little jumpy down around Tampa. So be careful.
I'll keep that in mind.
You bet. Take care, Bob. We'll chat
Okay,
soon.
Rich. See you tomorrow.
You bet. That's
Bye.
Bob Costas.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.